When I say fan favorite Ace Attorney character, who is the first one that comes to your mind? Is it Miles Edgeworth, Maya Fey, or perhaps even Phoenix Wright himself? Or, in all likelihood since you clicked on a video with his name on it, you thought of Detective Dick Gumshoe, everyone's favorite bumbling detective who's always trying his best despite it all. When it comes to Ace Attorney characters, Detective Gumshoe is one of the most beloved of them all within the community due to his ability to effortlessly create smiles and laughs whenever he's on screen. He's someone that players can always look forward to seeing in every game that he appears in, making him an easy fan favorite. But what exactly about him makes him so beloved? Well, in the simplest terms, Gumshoe is so popular because he fulfills the role of the comedic relief character, which is the character that serves to ease the tension of any given scenario through their silly antics, creating laughs that tend to be at their own expense. Comedic relief characters are some of the easiest characters to love in fiction because, simply put, humor is the best medicine. And when recalling a story, the audience will be quick to remember its funniest moments first because those are the moments that are most closely associated with the best of vibes. So is that it then? Is Gumshoe nothing more than a goofy comedic relief character that has become iconic due to his ability to create memorable moments full of laughs? While that certainly is part of it, I believe that there's much more that goes into what exactly makes him a fan favorite. Detective Gumshoe and characters like him are often written off for being rather simplistic from a writing perspective, and while they're still praised all the same, I think that there's a level of complexity to them that often goes unrecognized by the general audience. In reality, there is a science behind Gumshoe's lovability, and after delving into his character and pondering over what makes him stand out from the rest, I believe that I've been able to determine how exactly that science works. But in order to explain that to you, I believe that it's important to start from the beginning and work through Gumshoe's journey through the Ace Attorney series in order to see how he went from a humble detective to one of the all-time greats. So join me as I explore how Detective Dick Gumshoe was able to ascend far beyond being a simple comedic relief character and become one of the most beloved characters in the entire Ace Attorney series. Let's begin. Despite the heights that Detective Gumshoe would soar to as the series progressed, his first appearance in the original Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is surprisingly simple and unnoteworthy. As his name would imply, Gumshoe's first appearance stars him assuming the role of the detective in Phoenix Wright's first case against his old friend, Miles Edgeworth. He initially barges into Fey & Co. law offices following the murder of Mia Fey, and after reading a bloody message that incriminates his sister, Maya Fey, he immediately jumps to the conclusion that Maya is the culprit and arrests her on the spot, which then directly leads into the case that follows. When it comes to Gumshoe as a character, he is astonishingly lacking in personality in his initial outing. With Ace Attorney being as character-focused as it is, it can be easy to forget that when the series was just getting started, characters were little more than their archetypes. And so, Dick Gumshoe, whose name can literally be translated to Detective, most certainly fulfills the role of a typical detective. But he quite frankly does little beyond that. He simply serves to push the plot forward by providing information about both his boss Edgeworth and the case itself to Phoenix. Seeing as he's working for Edgeworth, he isn't necessarily the most cooperative, but his most noteworthy character trait at this point in the story causes him to let a lot more information slip than he intends to. You see, besides the fact that he's a detective, Gumshoe is mainly defined by his incompetence early on. He certainly does his best to slow Phoenix's progress down, but his lack of intelligence really starts to shine through when he does, as he's frequently so unsuccessful in deterring Phoenix that he actually unintentionally ends up helping him make progress in some way. This incompetence is highlighted by the occasional comedic jabs that his coworkers and boss take at him. It's clear from the outset that Gumshoe's associates are aware of his lack of abilities, and they don't treat him with much respect as a result. The most notable example of this is Edgeworth telling Gumshoe that he looks forward to his next salary assessment, ensuring a future full of instant noodles for the poor guy. And as far as Turnabout Sisters goes, that's all there is to say about old Gumshoe. He assumes the role of the game's main detective, and he's not as good at his job as he would like to be, frequently making him the butt of any given joke. However, as soon as the very next case rolls around, Turnabout Samurai, Phoenix and Maya begin to see a new side of the detective. Initially, he greets them with his usual gusto, but as soon as Maya makes a snarky remark towards him, his feelings are noticeably hurt. And while this is yet another example of Gumshoe being hurt for comedic effect, it's also a showcase of his human side beginning to shine through. His core identity as a detective who's prone to making mistakes is certainly still in full force, but this single interaction shows how he might just be a little bit more complex than that simple archetype. Under the surface, he's a really emotional guy who really cares a lot about doing his best and supporting Edgeworth. This all culminates in a moment at the tail end of the case where Phoenix and Maya are confronting Dee Vasquez, the true culprit of the case, because for some reason, Phoenix had a real habit of shoving decisive evidence right into the true culprit's face and not expecting them to do anything about it in the first game. Dee Vasquez responds by calling up a handful of Mafia members and ordering them to take care of the pair. But just when all seems lost, Detective Gumshoe storms in and saves them, immediately detaining Dee Vasquez for the upcoming trial in the process. Phoenix and Maya thank Gumshoe for saving their lives, and Gumshoe responds by saying that he's just doing his job, before chuckling to himself and telling them that he always wanted to say that line. This is Gumshoe's first major moment within the Ace Attorney series, and trust me, it's far from his last. After displaying that he may have a big heart underneath his scruffy exterior, Gumshoe is finally able to succeed in a major way by stopping Dee Vasquez in her tracks, which ends up being why she's ultimately put on the stand and convicted for her crimes in the first place. While his previous failures served to make the player feel bad for the poor guy, this moment has them cheering him on. And since this triumph is in service to Phoenix rather than against him, they're able to celebrate with no reservations. And to top it all off, Gumshoe is able to crack a charming joke as a cherry on top, solidifying this moment as the best showing of his character thus far. In the case that follows, Turnabout Goodbyes, Detective Gumshoe continues to develop as a character. With Edgeworth serving as the case's defendant, Gumshoe is driven by the motivation to see him set free, showing how there are things that are far more important to him than his job. I feel that this is an important detail to note because going against one's obligations is one of the best ways to establish emotional depth and complexity within a character. The fact that Gumshoe is choosing to support Edgeworth in spite of the fact that doing so is contrary to what his employers expect of him, once again shows how he's far more than a mere bumbling detective. He has real emotional stakes in this story, putting him on the same level as all of its key players. While he still has a job to do, he makes a real effort to support Phoenix this time around, granting him special permission to access the evidence room and spending all night searching for Yanni Yogi, once again making him one of the major reasons that the true culprit is convicted. And when all is said and done, it's Gumshoe that celebrates by buying everyone dinner in spite of his pitifully low salary. Despite his simple beginnings, Gumshoe is a man that displays real growth in the original Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Over the span of 3 cases, he evolves from an incompetent detective to a man with a big heart that is always trying to do the right thing, making him an easy standout by the time the credits roll. But thankfully, this would be far from his final appearance. As the original trilogy progresses, Detective Gumshoe only grows closer and closer to Phoenix, Maya, and the player's heart. While the first game gave him a very solid character arc that centered around him going against his orders to do what he believed is right, the following 2 games allow Gumshoe to become a real friend to trust and rely on. While he functioned as a conflicted adversary for the most part in his debut game, both Justice for All and Trials and Tribulations treat him much more like an ally who's willing to work together with Phoenix to find the truth. However, like before, this often means going against his boss's orders, which in these cases are Franziska von Karma and Godot. And like before, this can often get him into a little bit of trouble, but it's never enough to deter him from doing what he believes is right. These games also serve to really emphasize how much of a big heart Gumshoe has, as he consistently lets his emotional side shine through. And he's even given a love interest in Maggie Bird just to show how much of a big old softie he is. However, what I find to be particularly noteworthy about him is that as the series goes on and Gumshoe appears in more and more cases, a sense of comfort begins to form around the familiarity that he brings. No matter what the case, no matter how high the stakes are, he's always there to make the player crack a smile and support Phoenix in any way he can. Marching into unmarked territory in a new case always comes with a new sense of stress. It comes with excitement over a brand new mystery taking shape, to be sure, but also anxiety about having to start from scratch and learn a whole new set of facts. And this, my friends, makes way for one of the key purposes that Detective Gumshoe serves in the Ace Attorney series. When players are tasked with diving into a new case with entirely different settings and characters from the last, Gumshoe is the familiar face that can ease that tension and give them a sense of comfort. And that's because Gumshoe is designed to be a character that makes the players smile. As I previously stated, his role as a comedic relief character automatically serves to lower the tension of any given scenario. But in addition to that, his good heart and optimism at every avenue is contagious. It's as if his very presence is a form of reassurance, telling the player that no matter how rough things get, it's all gonna work out in the end. After all, your old pal Gumshoe has got your back. And that actually brings me to my next point, Gumshoe's catchphrase, or as he refers to it, his endearing character trait. Gumshoe has a habit of calling others pal, and referring to them as such at the end of a lot of his lines. And while this simple catchphrase could easily be seen as nothing more than a little splash of detective-themed flavor in his dialogue, I believe that it serves a greater purpose that ties into the familiarity that he brings with each passing case. You see, Gumshoe uses the phrase pal in multiple ways, and the context that he uses it in changes its meaning completely. When Gumshoe uses it in a negative way, then it's definitely meant to signify aggression and anger. But when he uses it in a positive way, it's meant to signify friendliness and trust. In the latter context, pal is more than just a catchphrase. It's a personal nickname given to those that Gumshoe trusts and is willing to put his faith into. This gives the term a personal feel to it that connects the player to Gumshoe and, as I previously stated, adds a sense of comfort and familiarity to his character. But I'm not done explaining what makes Gumshoe such a joy to encounter each and every time, because it's time we finally discuss Gumshoe's theme. And in order to do that, I would actually like to reference a video from Jalopes, who was able to come to several insightful conclusions about Gumshoe's theme that I likely would not have been able to on my own. In that video, Jalopes discusses how a lot of Ace Attorney character themes are intentionally designed to match the personality and energy of their respective characters, like how Maya's theme matches her upbeat and optimistic attitude, and how Godot's theme fits his cool and collected vibe to a T. However, this connection between a character's personality and their theme is not as immediately recognizable when it comes to Detective Gumshoe. Because while he's a big lovable goofball who's always working his hardest but stumbles at times, his theme feels awfully serious and professional. So by all accounts, Gumshoe's theme doesn't fit his personality at all on a surface level. And yet that actually ends up being beneficial overall. Seeing as Gumshoe is a recurring character who makes too many reappearances to even count throughout the series, players are naturally going to hear his theme quite often. As such, if he were given a sillier, more lighthearted theme, then that theme would likely become irritating over time and make players sick of seeing Gumshoe himself. Music is incredibly important to get right because of its ability to set the tone of any given situation. And while goofier tracks certainly do work at some situations, they can also quickly become annoying when used repetitively, though they must be utilized sparingly in order to maintain their effect. The composer of the original Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Masakazu Sugimori, was no doubt aware of this fact, as he chose to give Detective Gumshoe a theme that directly contrasted his character. And rather than feel jarring, it actually worked wonders for his likability. Because Gumshoe's theme is groovy, and its professional feel once again serves to reassure the player that everything is under control and that they're going to be okay with their old pal Gumshoe by their side. If you're at all interested in knowing more about what exactly makes this iconic theme effective, then I recommend checking out Jalopes' full video on the topic. I'll leave the link to it in the description down below. So, as I have outlined, Dick Gumshoe is a character that has been intentionally designed to be a lovable guy, and the design choices that were made to make him who he is are massive contributing factors to his overall popularity. If I were to compare Gumshoe to another fictional character who's become iconic for many of the same reasons, then I would have to choose Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. Yes, I'm serious, and yes, I did rewatch The Emperor's New Groove solely for the purposes of fact-checking myself for this brief segment. Not that I'm complaining, since that movie is amazing. Like Gumshoe, Kronk is a character who initially works for the main villain and is defined by his comedic moments that typically insult his intelligence in some way. As the story progresses, audiences are shown how genuine, well-intentioned, and surprisingly competent Kronk actually is, leading to him finally betraying Yzma and supporting the protagonists. And how did audiences receive this humble, goofy character who's not nearly as relevant to the main plot as its protagonists? Well, He's easily the most popular and iconic character in the entire movie. And when you think about everything that I've said about Gumshoe, it's easy to see why. These characters are memorable in part due to their comedic moments, but they're also memorable because they feel like real, honest, hard-working men who are just trying to make the world a better place one step at a time. I mean, come on. Gumshoe offering a pistol to Pearl to cheer her up, or confessing to Edgeworth that he always wanted to be a wizard when he was younger, has the exact same energy as Kronk playing jump rope with Pacha's kids and getting passionate over his cooking. Gumshoe's story doesn't necessarily follow Kronk's to a T, as he's never granted the opportunity to turn against his bosses in the same way that Kronk turns on his. Which is in part due to the fact that Ace Attorney's prosecutors are far more complex as characters than Yzma ever was. Despite that though, there are certainly still many similarities. Regardless, if there's anything to learn from all of this, it's that everyone loves a gentle giant. And everyone loves a character voiced by Patrick Warburton. Something funny about the way that I've described Detective Gumshoe up until this point is the fact that I've frequently highlighted that he always tries his best in spite of his own incompetence. Because what's amazing and quite commendable about Gumshoe is that as the series progressed, he would come to the rescue time and time again, always managing to come through when he's needed most. The first canonical instance of this happening post-Turnabout Goodbyes is in Rise from the Ashes, where Gumshoe risks his whole job in order to let Phoenix and Emma investigate Damon Gantz's office. And sure enough, this decision does result in Gumshoe temporarily losing his job. But it also gives Phoenix exactly what he needs to ultimately win the case, allowing for everyone to have a happy ending and for Gumshoe to get his job back. Things are then greatly intensified in Justice for All, as in Farewell My Turnabout, he risks his very life in order to track down Shelly to kill her and save Maya from his clutches while Phoenix and Edgeworth stall as much as they can in the courtroom. And once again, his efforts are what ultimately allow the team to win the day, as the evidence that he passes on to Franziska von Karma are the final pieces needed to save Maya's life and ensure that justice is served at the same time. Trials and Tribulations grants Gumshoe a case that was specifically designed to let him shine in Recipe for Turnabout, as he works tooth and nail to clear Maggie Bird's name, all in the name of love. This case contains several notable moments for the big guy, such as when he fended off Gene Armstrong and Firo Tigre at Tre Beyond, allowing Phoenix and Maya to escape from the restaurant with vital evidence. This is then followed by Gumshoe bursting into the courtroom at the very last minute when all seems lost with the test results of an older piece of evidence. And while those results don't seem all too helpful at first glance, they are once again what allow Phoenix to win the case once and for all. But even beyond those two triumphs, there's also the fact that Gumshoe prepares lunchboxes for Maggie when she's in the detention center, which is especially sweet when you realize the fact that he's likely spending all that he has to make them for her. I'm sorry, but that's just adorable. And it serves to make Recipe for Turnabout debatably Gumshoe's strongest showing in the original trilogy, both in terms of his feats and his pure soul. Despite all of that though, the original trilogy is not where his story ends, as he's able to have equally as strong, if not stronger, showcases in the Investigations duology, where he comes through time and time again in practically every case in those games. These games even tell the story of how Gumshoe came to meet Edgeworth, and that case provides yet another opportunity for him to show players his big heart, as he befriends a young Kay Faraday and cares for her when no one else can, causing her to give him the adorable nickname of Gummy. The investigation games are also where Gumshoe is granted a brand new theme, and I feel that the title of this theme best summarizes the message that I've been trying to convey this whole time. I can do it when it counts, pal. Though Gumshoe may stumble at times and make you wonder how he even landed his position in the first place, when it matters most, he can get the job done. And that's a fact that players come to learn throughout the series. No matter how bleak things may seem, they can count on Gummy to swoop in and save the day. And I found myself cheering him on each and every time that he did. All of these moments are meant to showcase Gumshoe's dedication, commitment, and, in spite of what he's made out to be, competency. Which is ironic, right? For a character that was meant to be comedically bad at his job, Detective Gumshoe is someone who learned to excel when the time is right. This all culminates in the very final scene of Ace Attorney Investigations 2 Prosecutor's Gambit, where Edgeworth commends Gumshoe for all of his hard work both over the past couple days and over the past few years as a whole. And as a thank you for all he's done, he finally gives him a raise. And while this moment is meant to be slightly comedic in nature, as it plays off the year's worth of jokes involving Gumshoe getting his paycheck reduced, it also feels incredibly meaningful because it shows just how far the man has come. Gumshoe went from someone that was defined by his own incompetency to a real, capable, respectable detective who has more than earned the right to call himself one of the best in the business. And as a result of this satisfying conclusion to his character arc, this would be the last that players would ever see of Dick Gumshoe. He does make a brief appearance in a flashback during Apollo Justice Ace Attorney, but that appearance is ultimately brief and completely unnoteworthy, making this moment his true last time in the spotlight. And I think that I speak for many members of the Ace Attorney community when I say that I miss him. Ever since he bid the series farewell, it's always felt as if something was missing. Things simply aren't the same without that earnest, lovable detective around to call you his pal. However, ultimately, I think things are better this way. Detective Gumshoe is a man who worked tooth and nail for Phoenix and crew over the years. He was a shoulder to lean on, he was someone that could give you a good laugh, and he was someone who was always working and fighting to do the right thing. He may not have always been the best at what he did, he may not have always been the most intelligent guy around, but he felt like home. And now, after everything he's done, the man has earned his rest. He's earned the right to kick up his feet knowing that he truly made the world a better place and embodied what a member of the police is meant to be: a protector, a guardian, a friend. Forgive me for delving into speculation, but I always imagine that after working so hard for so many years, Gumshoe is finally able to settle down and enjoy the rest of his life. Perhaps he and Maggie Bird were able to get married, and maybe the two of them even adopted Kay Faraday, but perhaps I'm going too far. Wherever he is, whatever he's up to now, I just hope that he's happy. Because for the countless number of times that he put a smile on my face throughout the series, he, more than anyone else, deserves to be happy. Thank you for watching, and be sure to let me know what your take on Detective Gumshoe is in the comments down below. And while you're down there, consider hitting the subscribe button for more deep dives into all things Ace Attorney. For now though, that's all from me. Take care of yourselves.